The steady beep of the heart monitor was a rhythmic presence in my ears. As I opened my eyes, the white ceiling tiles slowly coming into focus. The sterile scent of antiseptic filled my nostrils. A needle was taped to the back of my right hand, and I could feel a cool liquid seeping into my veins. "Eleanor, you're awake?" A nurse leaned over to check on me, a professional smile on her face. "How are you feeling?" I tried to speak, but my throat was as dry as if it were filled with sand. I managed to croak out a single word. The nurse gently lifted my head, helping me sip some warm water. "You had a stroke last night. Your neighbor brought you to the hospital. Your condition is stable now, but we'll need to keep you under observation for a few days." I nodded as my memory slowly returned. I had been in the kitchen preparing dinner last night when the world started to spin, and then nothing. It must have been my neighbor, Carol, who found me. We had planned to go for our weekly walk along the lakefront, and when I didn't show up, she must have come knocking, only to find me on the floor. "Your son has already been here," the nurse said, adjusting my pillow. "He just left a little while ago. He's hired a home health aide for you, and all the expenses have been taken care of." I glanced around the room. On the bedside table sat a beautifully wrapped fruit basket, looking completely untouched. It was undoubtedly a get-well gift from my son Michael, who hadn't even bothered to remove the cellophane. "What did he say?" I couldn't help but ask. The nurse's expression flickered with a moment of awkwardness. "He said there was an emergency at the office. He settled things with the aide and had to leave. Oh, and your daughter-in-law came too. A very beautiful woman." I closed my eyes, not wanting the nurse to see the disappointment welling up inside them. Michael, my only son, and Jessica, his wife of 6 years, had only made a fleeting appearance during my hospital stay before leaving. It was typical of them solving problems with money, never investing their time. The aide, Brenda, was a kind woman in her 50s. She helped me wash my face and comb my hair with gentle, practiced movements. "Eleanor, your son is so thoughtful," she said while she worked. "He specifically requested me to take care of you." I managed a bitter smile. Thoughtful? If paying for an aide was the measure of thoughtfulness, then there were no unthoughtful children in the world. I had raised Michael on my own, put him through college, helped with the down payment on his first condo, and even used my entire life savings to bail him out when his first business failed. And now, as I lay in a hospital bed, he had given me 5 minutes of his time. In the afternoon, the door to my room opened. I thought it was the doctor, but instead, I saw Jessica clicking in on her high heels. She wore a chic business suit, her makeup was perfect, and she was still typing replies on her phone. "Mom, are you feeling any better?" she asked, standing at the foot of the bed, her eyes never leaving her screen. "Michael is tied up with a major project at work and can't get away, so he asked me to check on you." I nodded, unsure what to say. Jessica and I had never been close. She came from a wealthy family, had studied abroad, and always seemed to think of me as a simple, uncultured mother-in-law. In 6 years of marriage, she had never once called me on her own initiative. The gifts she gave for birthdays and holidays were always picked out by Michael. "The doctor said you'll need to stay for a few days," she said, finally putting her phone down and glancing around the room. Her eyes paused for a second on the fruit basket. "This is a nice basket. A client sent it to the office. It's all imported fruit, you know." "About a week," I managed to say, struggling to form the words. The stroke had affected my speech, making it slur. Jessica frowned slightly, as if my pronunciation bothered her. "Well, is the aide all set up?" "Don't worry about the cost. Michael has handled everything." She glanced at her watch. "Oh, I have a conference call soon. I have to go." She turned to leave, then suddenly turned back and picked up the fruit basket from the bedside table. "I'll just take this. It's not like you can eat it anyway, and it'll just go to waste sitting here. I'll bring you something else tomorrow." I watched, stunned, as she walked out with my get-well gift, not even bothering to say, "Get some rest." The moment the door clicked shut, the tears I had been holding back finally streamed down my face. When Brenda came back in, I was trying to wipe my eyes with the corner of the bedsheet. "Eleanor, what's wrong? Are you in pain?" she asked, concerned. I shook my head. "No, my eyes are just a little sore." Brenda sighed, clearly seeing through my lie. "Eleanor, Don't take it to heart. Young people these days are under a lot of pressure at work. It's common for them to not have enough time for their parents. I've cared for many elderly people, and just having their children visit the hospital for a moment is considered pretty good. Her words were meant to comfort me, but they only made my heart grow colder. When had society become like this? When did a child's care for a parent become a luxury instead of a fundamental responsibility? That evening, my attending physician came to make his rounds. He told me I was recovering well, but needed to manage my blood pressure and emotions from now on. Eleanor, you were very lucky. This was a minor stroke, and it didn't cause any severe long-term effects. But you might not be so lucky next time. You have to learn to relax and not worry so much. I nodded with a wry smile. Not worry? I had spent my entire life worrying. My husband died young, and I raised Michael all by myself, giving him everything. Now he was successful, but he treated me like a burden. Late that night, as I stared at the ceiling, I made a decision. I pressed the call button, and the night nurse quickly appeared at my bedside. Is there something you need, Eleanor? Could you help me contact a lawyer? I said, slowly but clearly. I want to change my will. The nurse was taken aback. It might be difficult to arrange for a lawyer to come to the hospital directly. Would you like me to call your son for you? No, I said, shaking my head firmly. Please, just make this call for me. I took a business card from the drawer. It was from the director of the Serenity Gardens retirement community who had visited my home last week. At the time, she had invited me to tour the facility, and I had politely declined, saying I had a son to take care of me. Now, I finally understood. Some support is worse than no support at all. The early morning sun streamed through the blinds, casting stripes of light across the room. I had been awake for a while, just staring at the ceiling. The decision I made last night left me feeling both anxious and relieved, as if a great weight that had been pressing on my heart for years had finally been lifted. You're up early, Eleanor, Brenda, the aide, said as she quietly entered with a glass of warm water. Have a drink. The doctor will be here for rounds soon. I took the glass, sipping slowly. The after effects of the stroke made my right hand weak, and the glass trembled slightly. You look much better today, Brenda said, tidying up the bed. Your son called yesterday to ask how you were. He said he might have time to visit today. I set the glass down without a word. Michael's idea of having time usually meant a 5-minute visit filled with excuses. After he got married 6 years ago, I became the least important part of his life. His business, his wife, his social life, everything came before me. The doctor's visit brought good news. My recovery was progressing better than expected, and I could be discharged in 2 days. Eleanor, once you're home, you need to rest, take your medication on time, and come in for regular checkups. And your emotional state is very important. Try to stay cheerful. Cheerful? I thought with a bitter smile. How could I possibly be cheerful living in a home where I was treated like I was invisible? Just after the doctor left, the door opened. I expected a nurse with my medication, but instead, Michael was standing there. He was in a sharp suit, staring intently at his phone, his brow furrowed. Mom, are you feeling better? He asked, walking in with his eyes still glued to the screen. With his other hand, he pulled a folder from his briefcase. Here's the contract and the breakdown of costs for the aid. He placed the folder on the bedside table. Much better, I said. The doctor says I can go home in 2 days. That's great, Michael said, finally looking up from his phone and glancing at his watch. I'll have Jessica arrange for a car to pick you up. By the way, do you have enough blood pressure medication at home? Should I have my assistant pick some up? No. I can handle it myself, I said, forcing each word out. The stroke had left me with a speech impediment that made talking a struggle. Michael frowned, seeming impatient with my slurred speech. Mom, don't be stubborn. When you get older, you have to accept help when you need it. He paused. By the way, I've paid all the hospital bills, so you don't have to worry about a thing. Money again. In his eyes, every problem could be solved with money. The 20-plus years of my life I had poured into raising him, the sacrifice I made selling my jewelry to pay off his debts when his business failed, it was all now reduced to cold, hard cash for medical bills, and an aide salary. Michael, I took a deep breath. trying to make my words clear. Do you remember when you had that high fever when you were 10? He looked startled, clearly not expecting me to bring that up. That was so long ago. Who remembers that? I took 3 days off work to stay by your bedside, I said slowly, each word feeling like it was being pulled from my throat. Your father was gone. I raised you all by myself. Michael's expression shifted to one of annoyance and embarrassment. Mom, what are you bringing all this up for? Didn't I hire the best aide for you? The company is at a critical stage right now. I'm really busy. You should go, I said, closing my eyes. I didn't want to see him make any more excuses. I'm tired. As if granted a pardon, Michael immediately stood up. Okay, then you get some rest. I'll have Jessica pick you up on the day you're discharged. He left quickly, his footsteps fading down the hallway. I opened my eyes, the pillow already damp with tears. This was the son I had raised, the son who now saw me as nothing more than a problem to be managed, not a mother to be loved. That afternoon, Miss Davis, the director of the retirement community, arrived as promised. She was an elegant woman in her early 60s, dressed in simple but tasteful clothes, holding a bouquet of carnations. Eleanor, I heard you were in the hospital, so I came to see you, she said, placing the flowers on the bedside table and sitting down next to me. How's your recovery going? I nodded, trying to force a smile. Much better. Thank you for coming. Miss Davis sensed my low spirits and gently took my hand. What's wrong? Did you have a disagreement with your son? My voice choked with emotion as I told her about the past few days, my son's 5-minute visit, the absurd incident with my daughter-in-law taking the fruit basket, and Michael's dismissive attitude that morning. After listening, Miss Davis sighed. Eleanor, children like that are not uncommon these days. They see their parents as a burden and try to solve everything with money, but they're unwilling to give their time or affection. She paused. Have you considered moving into our community? The environment is lovely, and you'll have many people your own age to talk to. This was exactly what I had decided last night. I told Miss Davis that I wanted to change my will and donate my condo to the community in exchange for lifetime residency. That condo represented my late husband's and my life savings. I couldn't bear to leave it to an ungrateful son. Miss Davis looked surprised. Are you sure you want to do this? It's your only property. I'm sure, I said firmly. Michael owns 3 properties. He doesn't need this one. I want to live out the rest of my years with dignity. Miss Davis thought for a moment, then nodded. I know a reliable lawyer who can handle this for you. She hesitated, but maybe you should give your son one more chance? Perhaps he just doesn't know how to show he cares. He's 40 years old, not a child, I interrupted. I've given him countless chances. Miss Davis didn't press the issue further and promised to contact the lawyer for me. Before she left, I asked her for a favor. On the day I'm discharged, please don't tell Michael or Jessica. I want to go directly to the community. Are you absolutely sure? Miss Davis asked one last time. I'm sure. Looking at the sunlight outside the window, I felt a sense of relief I hadn't felt in years. For the first time, I was going to live for myself. 2 days later, the day of my discharge arrived. The doctor reminded me again to stay cheerful, take my medication, and come for regular checkups. I nodded in agreement, my mind already on the new life that awaited me. Miss Davis came to pick me up herself, accompanied by a lawyer named Mr. Clark. In the car, I signed the new will and the property donation agreement. The 2-bedroom condo, the result of a lifetime of hard work for my husband and me, would now be my ticket to a peaceful old age. Everything is in order, Mr. Clark said, putting the documents away. However, Eleanor, legally your son still has inheritance rights, and he may contest this. Let him try, I said calmly. I have a will that proves I am of sound mind and made this decision voluntarily. As the car passed through the gates of Serenity Gardens, a wave of relief washed over me. The grounds were beautiful, with lush trees and several small buildings scattered among the gardens. Many residents were strolling, practicing Tai Chi, or playing chess in the courtyard, all looking relaxed and content. Welcome to your new home, Miss Davis said with a smile. I've arranged a south-facing room for you. It gets wonderful sunlight. My new apartment was more spacious and comfortable than I had imagined. It was a 1-bedroom layout with simple but complete furnishings, and a small balcony for sunbathing. A few landscape paintings hung on the walls, and a potted plant sat on the windowsill, creating a warm and inviting atmosphere. You can rest today. Tomorrow, I'll introduce you to some of the other residents, Miss Davis said as she helped me with my luggage. The dining hall is on the first floor. 3 meals are provided, but you can also cook for yourself. The activity center has different classes and events every day, so feel free to join in. After she left, I sat on the edge of the bed and looked around the unfamiliar space. For the first time in my 77 years, I had a place that was truly my own, where I didn't have to please anyone or worry about being in the way. The feeling of freedom was both strange and wonderful. My cell phone suddenly rang. It was Michael. I stared at the screen for a few seconds before silencing it. It was time for them to know what it felt like to be ignored. On my first morning at the retirement community, I was awakened by the sound of birds chirping outside my window. Sunlight filtered through the sheer curtains, casting dappled patterns on the floor. I lay in bed, savoring the peaceful moment. There was no rush to get up, no household chores waiting for me. My phone showed 3 missed calls, all from Michael. There were also several text messages. Mom, Jessica went to the hospital to pick you up, but the nurse said you'd already been discharged. Where did you go? Why aren't you answering your phone? Mom, stop being difficult. Call me back. I set the phone aside, not in any hurry to reply. Let them worry for a while, just as I had worried and waited for their attention all these years. After getting ready, I changed into a new set of clothes Miss Davis had bought for me yesterday, a light blue knit sweater and comfortable slacks. At home, I always wore old clothes that had faded from countless washes, feeling it was unnecessary to buy new things for an old woman. But now, I wanted to treat myself better. In the dining hall, a dozen or so residents were having breakfast. It was a buffet with oatmeal, bacon, eggs, and fresh fruit, a wider variety than I had expected. I took my tray and found a seat by the window. Good morning, new friend. A woman with silver hair sat down across from me, her smile warm and friendly. I'm Carol. I've been here for 2 years. You must be the new resident, Eleanor, right? Miss Davis mentioned you. I nodded, a little surprised by her warmth. Eleanor Miller. I just arrived yesterday. You'll get used to it, Carol said, seeming to sense my unease. I felt strange at first, too, but now I wouldn't want to leave. The environment is great. There are people to talk to, all sorts of activities. It's much better than being home alone. She told me about the community. There were calligraphy classes, painting classes, a choir, and even smartphone training sessions every week. The on-site clinic had a resident doctor and offered regular checkups. There was a vegetable garden, and residents could apply for a small plot if they enjoyed gardening. Oh, and there's a ballroom dance this afternoon. Do you want to come and watch? Carol winked. A lot of the single ladies look forward to it. I smiled and shook my head. These old bones of mine can't dance anymore. It's just for fun, not a competition, Carol said dismissively. Besides, Arthur will be there. He's our community's heartthrob. He was a university professor before he retired, and he's an excellent dancer. After breakfast, Carol gave me a tour of the community. Besides the dining hall, there was a library, a game room, a fitness center, and the clinic. The small garden had a gazebo and benches, and the environment was indeed lovely. It might take some getting used to, but you'll come to see how good it is here, Carol said, patting my hand. At least you don't have to deal with your daughter-in-law's attitude every day, right? I gave a wry smile. Jessica wasn't a bad person, but how should I put it? There was always a distance between us. She was polite but never warm, and being overly sensitive, I could always read the disapproval in her words and glances. Back in my room, I checked my phone. 2 more missed calls from Michael, and a few more texts, his tone growing more frantic. The last one read, "Mom, where on earth are you? I'm really worried." Worried? I scoffed. If he were truly worried, he wouldn't have stayed for only 5 minutes while I was in the hospital. He wouldn't have let his wife take my get-well fruit, and he wouldn't have tried to dismiss his own mother with a paycheck for an aide. In the afternoon, I attended the smartphone training class as planned. The classroom was filled with silver-haired students, each holding a phone and listening attentively. The instructor started with the very basics, like turning the phone on and off, then moved on to using messaging apps, taking photos, and accessing health portals. I was a diligent student, taking notes on every step in a small notebook. It turned out these things weren't as complicated as Michael had made them out to be. He just never had the patience to teach me. After class, I worked up the courage to send a friend request to Arthur, the professor. It was the first time I had ever initiated a friend request with a stranger. He accepted almost immediately and sent a smiling emoji. "You were a quick learner today, Eleanor," his message read. "The teacher was good," I replied, feeling a strange thrill, like when I used to pass notes with boys in school. After dinner, music drifted from the activity center. As I walked by, I couldn't help but stop and look. Through the glass doors, I saw a dozen couples ballroom dancing. Carol was wearing a brightly colored dress, dancing gracefully with Arthur, her face beaming with a radiant smile. I didn't go in, but I stood outside watching for a long time. The twirling figures, the outstretched arms, the smiles filled with life, they all looked so free, so happy. Back in my room, I opened the small box at the bottom of my suitcase. Inside were old photos and mementos, including a picture of me in my early 20s dancing at a company talent show. I was wearing a red dress, my smile bright and full of hope. I had forgotten how much I once loved to dance. My phone rang again. This time, it was a video call from Lily. I hesitated for a moment before answering. My granddaughter's cherubic face appeared on the screen, her eyes red as if she had been crying. "Grandma, where did you go?" "Dad said you disappeared." Lily's voice quivered. My heart instantly softened. The conflicts of adults shouldn't involve children. Grandma is in a very nice place, with gardens and friends. It's like being on vacation. "I miss you," Lily sniffled. "Dad said you were angry because we didn't visit you enough in the hospital." I didn't know how to answer. Yes, I was angry, but not at Lily. Grandma isn't angry with you. Whenever you miss Grandma, you can come and visit me. "Really? Where? I want to come." Lily's voice lit up. I gave her the address of the community, reminding her that she had to come with her parents. After hanging up, I felt a mix of anticipation and apprehension. Lily was the only real bond I had with my son's family. But I didn't want to use a child's emotions as a tool. The next morning, I was sunbathing on my balcony when Miss Davis knocked on the door, her expression a little serious. "Eleanor, your son called the front desk. He's very anxious to find you. He said if he can't get in touch with you, he's going to call the police." I sighed, knowing I couldn't hide any longer. "Please put the call through." A few minutes later, the phone in my room rang. I took a deep breath and picked up the receiver. "Mom, what on earth are you doing?" Michael's voice was a mixture of anxiety and anger. "Disappearing without a word. Do you have any idea how worried I've been?" "Worried?" I asked calmly. "When I was in the hospital, you stayed for 5 minutes. Jessica took my fruit. You hired an aide, and that was that." There was silence on the other end for a few seconds. "Mom, the office was incredibly busy then. I didn't mean to." "Michael," I interrupted him. "I'm at the Serenity Gardens retirement community. I've decided to live here." "What? A retirement community?" His voice shot up an octave. "You have a son, a home. Why would you go to a place like that? What will people think of me?" There it was. Other people's opinions. In his eyes, my feelings were never as important as his public image. "I'm very happy here. I have friends, activities, and I don't have to walk on eggshells around anyone." "Mom, stop this nonsense," Michael practically shouted. "I'm coming to get you right now." "No," I said firmly. "This is my decision. Respect it." I could hear his heavy breathing on the other end, followed by a long silence. Finally, Michael said through gritted teeth, "Fine, have it your way. But don't expect me to pay for it." "You don't have to," I replied calmly. "I have my pension and my condo." After hanging up, I felt a huge sense of relief. The conversation had been harder than I'd imagined, but I had finally said what had been building up inside me for years. I was no longer the compliant, submissive mother who always put her son first. In the afternoon, I went to my painting class. The instructor was a retired art teacher, and she was teaching us how to paint still lifes. My hand trembled a bit as I held the brush, but the apple I painted turned out surprisingly well. "Eleanor, that's excellent for your first time. You have a real talent," the teacher praised, and the other residents chimed in with compliments. I felt a surge of accomplishment I hadn't felt in a long time. At home, no matter how delicious my cooking was or how clean I kept the house, I rarely received such validation. My son's family had grown so accustomed to my efforts that they took them for granted. After class, Arthur came over to look at my painting. "That's very good, Eleanor. Next Wednesday, we're going to a park to do some landscape painting. Would you like to join us?" I hesitated for a moment, then nodded. I had loved to draw when I was young, but after getting married and having a child, that hobby had been buried. Maybe now was the time to pick it up again. Back in my room, my phone had over a dozen missed calls and a flood of text messages, all from Michael. The last one read, "Mom, Lily and I are coming to see you tomorrow. Please, see us." I didn't reply, but in my heart, I had already agreed. No matter what, I could never turn away Lily. That child was the softest spot in my heart. That evening, I sat at my desk and wrote a letter to my late husband, telling him about my decision and the events of the past few days. When I was done, I burned it, letting the smoke carry my thoughts to him. "Honey, if you're watching over me, would you support my decision?" I whispered to the starry sky outside my window. The stars twinkled, offering no answer, but my heart felt a peace it hadn't known in years. My son and granddaughter were coming tomorrow. I didn't know what would happen, but I knew one thing for sure. I would never go back to being the invisible woman in that house. The morning sun cast a warm glow over the small garden at the retirement community. I sat on a bench, a cup of hot tea in my hands, waiting for Michael and Lily to arrive. I had barely slept, replaying today's potential conversations over and over in my mind. "Up so early, Eleanor?" Carol walked over and sat beside me. "I hear your son is visiting today." I nodded, my fingers unconsciously tracing the rim of the teacup. "Yes, he's bringing my granddaughter." "Nervous?" Carol saw right through me. I gave a weak smile. "A little. I don't know what to say." Carol patted my hand. "Just be yourself. Remember, you're a resident here now, not an old woman waiting to be taken home." Her words struck a chord. She was right. I was no longer a mother who needed her son's permission to make decisions. This was my choice, my new life. In the distance, the sound of a car engine grew louder. A familiar black sedan pulled up to the entrance. My heart began to pound, and the teacup rattled in my hand. When Michael got out of the car, I barely recognized him. It had only been a few days, but he looked exhausted. There were dark circles under his eyes, and his suit was wrinkled, as if he'd slept in it. Lily bounced out of the car, wearing a pink dress and clutching a stuffed animal. "Grandma!" Lily spotted me immediately and ran over, throwing herself into my arms. I held her tight, breathing in the familiar scent of strawberry shampoo from her hair, my eyes instantly welling up. "She's gotten taller," Michael said, walking slowly towards us. He stood a few feet away, his expression a complicated mix of emotions. His eyes scanned the community's gardens, the buildings, and the residents enjoying their morning, his frown deepening. "Mom," he finally said, his voice hoarse, "you're really living in a place like this?" I looked up, meeting my son's gaze directly. "It's a wonderful place. I like it here." Michael took a deep breath, clearly trying to control his temper. "Can we talk somewhere? Alone?" I led them to the community's visiting room, a bright and quiet space. Lily sat beside me, her small hand gripping my sleeve, as if she was afraid I might disappear again. "Mom, what were you thinking?" Michael demanded as soon as he sat down. "Running off to a retirement home without a word. Do you know how worried I've been?" "Worried?" I asked calmly. "Were you worried about my safety or about your reputation?" Michael's face flushed. "What kind of question is that?" "Of course I was worried about you. You're at an age where living alone, anything could happen. They have doctors on call 24 hours a day here," I said, pointing to the emergency call button on the wall. "It's safer than being at home." Michael ran a hand through his hair in frustration. "Mom, stop this. Pack your things and come home with me. Jessica is worried about you too." I couldn't help but laugh. "She's worried? She's the one who took my get-well fruit." That was a misunderstanding. Michael's voice rose. Jessica thought you couldn't eat that kind of fruit and didn't want it to go to waste. How can you make such a big deal over something so small? It's not about the fruit. I cut him off, my voice trembling with emotion. It's about the fact that you both treat me like I'm invisible. I was in the hospital for 5 days. You came for 5 minutes. Jessica came for 3 and left with my gift. Is that what you call caring? Michael was speechless, seemingly shocked that I would so openly voice my resentment. Lily looked between us, anxious, her hand tightening its grip on my sleeve. "Grandma, don't be mad," Lily said timidly. "Daddy hasn't been sleeping. He's been looking for you." I looked at my granddaughter's worried face, took a deep breath, and calmed myself. "Sweetheart, Grandma isn't mad. I just wanted to live somewhere different." Michael rubbed his temples, his tone softening. "Mom, I know we haven't been good enough, but you can't just move out without saying anything. Do you know what the neighbors are asking me? They're asking if I mistreated you, if that's why you ran away to a nursing home." Of course. It always came back to what other people thought. I shook my head in disappointment. "Michael, I'm 67 years old. I don't have that much time left. I want to live for myself for once." "But you have a home. You have a son and a granddaughter," Michael almost shouted. "If you do this, what will people say about me? They'll say I'm not a good son." Lily flinched at her father's loud voice and burrowed closer to me. I patted her back and looked calmly at my son. "Are you more worried about what other people think, or about how I feel?" The question hit Michael like a bucket of cold water. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. "Daddy." Lily suddenly spoke up, her voice small but firm. "Grandma is happy here. See? She has new friends, and she's learning to paint." Michael looked at his daughter, then at me, stunned. You're learning to paint?" I nodded and took out my phone to show him the picture of the apple I had painted yesterday. "The teacher said I have a talent for it." Michael stared at the screen, his expression shifting from shock to confusion. "Mom, when did you start liking painting?" "I never knew." "There's a lot you don't know," I said softly. "You don't know that I love to dance, that I love to travel, that I love to read poetry. You only know me as Michael's mother and Lily's grandmother." Michael fell silent, his gaze fixed on the painting on my phone. "Grandma, can you teach me how to paint?" Lily broke the silence. "I want to paint an apple too." "Of course, sweetie," I said, kissing her forehead. "You can come next week and I'll teach you." "Next week?" Michael looked up sharply. "Mom, you're really not coming home?" I shook my head firmly. "This is my new home. You're all welcome to visit any time." Michael looked as though he had been struck. "Mom, please don't do this. I know I was wrong, okay? I'll spend more time with you. I'll be more attentive." "Michael?" I interrupted his promises. "Occasional attention isn't enough. What I need is respect and space." The door to the visiting room opened gently, and Miss Davis peeked her head in. "Sorry to interrupt, Eleanor, but your lawyer is here. There are a few papers for you to sign regarding the property transfer." "Property transfer." Michael shot to his feet, his face turning pale. "Mom, what are you doing?" I looked at my son calmly. "I'm donating the condo to the community in exchange for lifetime residency." Michael froze, looking as if he'd been struck by lightning. "You're giving away the house Dad left us to strangers?" "The house is mine. I have the right to decide what to do with it," I said, standing up to leave. "Miss Davis, I'll be right there." "Mom!" Michael grabbed my arm, his voice filled with a panic I had never heard before. "You can't do this. That's the house I grew up in." I gently removed his hand from my arm. "You already have 3 houses of your own. This one is my security for the future." "I don't care how much the house is worth," Michael yelled. "That's our home. How could you just give it away?" "The same way you just ignored me," I retorted, then shook my head. "But this isn't about revenge. This is about my security." With that, I followed Miss Davis out of the room, leaving Michael standing there in shock. Lily ran after me and tugged on my hand. "Grandma, Daddy's crying." I stopped and looked back. Through the glass window of the visiting room, I saw Michael slumped in a chair, his face buried in his hands, his shoulders shaking slightly. In that moment, my heart felt like it was being squeezed by an invisible hand. I had never seen my son like this. Growing up, Michael had always been strong. Even when he fell and split his head open, he never shed a tear. And now, he was breaking down over a few words from me. "Eleanor, are you all right?" Miss Davis asked with concern. I took a deep breath and nodded. "Please ask the lawyer to wait a moment. I need to talk to my son again." When I returned to the room, Michael looked up, his eyes red and swollen. "Mom, I'm sorry. I really am. I know I was wrong." I sat down across from him and took his hand. "Michael, I'm not trying to punish you. I just want to live with dignity." "But you can have dignity at home," he said desperately. "I promise. I'll spend more time with you. I'll pay more attention to you." "That's not who you are." I shook my head. "You're busy, you're stressed. I don't want to be a burden to you." "You're not a burden," Michael said, his voice thick with emotion. "You're my mother." "Then respect my choice," I said calmly. "Let me live here, happily. You can visit me often. Bring Lily." Michael fell silent, tears welling up in his eyes. Lily looked from her father to me and suddenly said, "Daddy, can we visit Grandma every week? I like it here. There are lots of flowers and butterflies." The child's innocence broke the heavy tension. Michael wiped his face and managed a weak smile. "Okay, we'll come every week." He turned to me, his voice low but firm. "Mom, I respect your decision, but please, reconsider the house. That's our family home. I don't want to lose it." I looked at his pleading eyes and nodded softly. "I'll think about it." Michael seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. He stood up and hugged me. "Mom, I love you. I know I haven't been good at showing it, but I really do love you." Those simple words, "I love you," struck the very core of my heart. How many years had it been since he'd said that? I hugged my son back, feeling his familiar warmth, tears silently streaming down my face. "I love you too, son." After Michael and Lily left, I went back to my room and sat on the edge of the bed, completely drained. The conversation had been more difficult than I could have imagined, but at least we had finally started to be honest with each other. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Michael. "Mom, thank you for seeing me today. I will prove with my actions that I can change. Please think carefully about the house. Love you." I didn't reply, but my heart had already softened. Maybe giving him a chance was also giving myself a chance. That evening, the retirement community held its monthly concert. Arthur played the piano, and a few of the women sang. The atmosphere was warm and joyful. I sat in the audience, watching the silver-haired but vibrant performers on stage, and I suddenly understood what I truly wanted. It wasn't revenge or punishment. It was to be like them, to live the final chapter of my life with joy and dignity. After the concert, I found Miss Davis and told her I wanted to amend the property donation agreement. Instead of an outright donation, I wanted to set up a trust managed jointly by the community and a third party. It would guarantee my residency, while also preserving a portion of Michael's inheritance. "Are you sure?" Miss Davis asked, surprised. "You seemed so determined before." "I'm still determined to live here," I explained. "But the condo does hold memories for Michael. I don't want to take that away from him completely." Miss Davis smiled and nodded. "You are a very kind mother. I'll have the lawyer draft a new agreement." Back in my room, I sent a text to Michael. "I've made some changes regarding the condo. You will still be a partial heir, but I will be living here." His reply came quickly. "Thank you, Mom. Can I bring Lily to visit this weekend?" "Yes," I replied simply, then added, "and bring some fruit. Don't let Jessica take it this time." There was a pause, then a laughing, crying emoji appeared on my screen. "Mom, your ability to hold a grudge is impressive." "Yes, Your Majesty." Looking at the screen, I couldn't help but smile. Maybe this was a new beginning. Not one side completely surrendering, but both sides taking a step back to find a new balance. Outside, the moonlight was like water, and the stars were scattered across the sky. I lay in bed, replaying the day's events in my mind, feeling both relieved and hopeful. Tomorrow, I would have my painting class. The day after, the smartphone training. And on the weekend, Michael and Lily would visit. My life, at 67, was perhaps just beginning. My first month at Serenity Gardens flew by. Every morning, I woke to the sound of birdsong, no longer rushing to prepare breakfast for the whole family. After getting ready, I would take a walk in the garden, breathe in the fresh air, and then enjoy a leisurely breakfast in the dining hall. Wednesday mornings were for my painting class. I discovered I had a growing passion for watercolors. Arthur, I called him Arthur now, often sat beside me, offering professional advice from time to time. He had been a professor at the School of the Art Institute before retiring, and his manner was so gentle and polite that his critiques never felt intrusive. "Eleanor, this painting of sunflowers has so much life in it," Arthur remarked one day after class, standing before my easel. "Your use of color is very bold." I smiled, a little embarrassed. "I've loved sunflowers since I was a child. They always turn towards the Sunday." Arthur nodded, a look of understanding in his eyes. "Just like you, always facing the light, finding your own sunshine even in difficult times." His words warmed my heart. Few people understood me this way, seeing my strength. To my son, I was just an aging mother who needed care. To my daughter-in-law, a superfluous mother-in-law. But here, among Arthur and my new friends, I was Eleanor Miller, a person with a life, a story, and dreams. "We're planning a trip to the suburbs to do some landscape painting next week. Would you like to come?" Arthur invited. "There will be a shuttle, so it's very convenient." I hesitated. Since the stroke, I'd been anxious about going out. "I'm still a bit unsteady on my feet." "That's all right. I can help you," Arthur said sincerely. "We'll take it slow. No pressure." I ended up agreeing. It felt so good to be respected and understood, to not be overprotected because of my age or have my concerns dismissed. Back in my room, I had a few unread messages. Michael had sent a photo of Lily painting at school with the caption, "Lily says she wants to learn painting from Grandma. Can we come for a lesson this weekend?" I smiled and replied, "You are always welcome." Since I had moved to the community, Michael brought Lily to visit me every week. Sometimes, Jessica came along too. Our relationship was paradoxically closer now than when we lived under the same roof. On Saturday morning, Michael's family arrived as promised. Lily skipped into the room, holding a beautifully wrapped box. "Grandma, I brought you a present." Inside the box was a professional set of watercolor paints and brushes. "Daddy said you liked to paint, so we went to a special art supply store to buy them," Lily announced proudly. I looked at Michael, surprised. He scratched his head, a little sheepishly. "Well, Mom, I'm glad you like them." Lily insisted on getting the most expensive set. "Thank you." "I love them," I said, stroking the fine bristles of the brushes, my heart filled with warmth. It was the first time my son had chosen a gift based on my interests, instead of just buying some generic health supplements. Jessica stood nearby, holding a fruit basket. This time, she made no move to take it back. "Mom, I heard your blood pressure has been stable. I brought some pomegranates. They're good for your heart." I nodded my thanks. Since I moved out, Jessica's attitude had subtly changed. She no longer treated me like a mother-in-law she had to tolerate, but was beginning to show genuine concern for my well-being. Lily couldn't wait for her painting lesson. We set up easels on the balcony, and I showed her how to hold the brush and mix colors. She was a quick learner, and the little flower she painted, though childish, was full of charm. "Grandma, you teach me to paint, and I'll teach you how to take pictures with your phone, okay?" Lily suggested suddenly. We could start a video channel called the Grandma and Granddaughter Artists. We all laughed at her innocent idea. Michael took out his phone and captured the sweet moment of me and Lily, heads together, painting in the warm sunlight. We had lunch in the community's dining hall. Michael was surprised by the variety and nutritional balance of the food. "Mom, the food here is better than at home." "Jessica, we need to step up our game." To my surprise, Jessica didn't argue. Instead, she earnestly asked the chef for the recipes of a few dishes. Watching her focused expression, I suddenly realized that perhaps I had been too hard on her in the past. She wasn't unkind, just not skilled at expressing her feelings. After lunch, Lily convinced Arthur to give her a tour of the gardens. Michael and I sat on the balcony, sipping tea, enjoying a rare moment alone. "Mom, are you really happy here?" Michael asked suddenly, his gaze serious. I nodded, slowly stirring my tea. "Very happy. I have friends, hobbies, and my dignity." Michael was silent for a moment. I've been thinking a lot about when I was a kid lately. I remember when I had that high fever when I was 10. You took 3 days off work to stay by my bed. You barely slept. I was surprised he brought that up. You remember that? I do, he said, his voice low. But I didn't do the same for you. When you were in the hospital, I only stayed for 5 minutes. Seeing his guilt, I reached out and patted his shoulder. That's in the past. What matters is now. Mom, I'm so sorry, Michael said, his eyes turning red. For all these years, I took you for granted. I completely ignored your feelings. It was only after you moved out that I realized you're not just my mom. You have your own life. His words made my nose tingle. For how many years had I longed for this kind of understanding? To be seen as an individual, not just as Michael's mother. You're busy with work, under a lot of pressure. I understand, I said softly. No, Mom, that's no excuse. Michael shook his head. I will do better. You can stay here as long as you want, as long as you're happy. We'll visit every weekend, and if you need anything at all, just call. Looking into his sincere eyes, I felt that this running away from home might have been a blessing in disguise, a chance for us to rediscover each other and build a healthier relationship. In the evening, after my son's family had left, I sat on the balcony watching the sunset. Arthur knocked on the door, holding a book. Eleanor, here's some information on the location for next week's painting trip. You can take a look. I invited him in for tea and showed him the painting Lily had done. Arthur admired it seriously, offering professional comments. It was always so comfortable talking with him. He never patronized me because of my age, nor did he try to flatter me. Your son looked much more relaxed today, Arthur remarked casually. The last time I saw him, he seemed very anxious. We talked things out, I replied with a smile. Sometimes, a little distance does wonders. Arthur nodded knowingly. A healthy distance can make relationships stronger. My daughter is in California. We video chat every day, and we're closer now than when we lived together. We talked until dusk before Arthur got up to leave. As he was leaving, he said, Eleanor, you are a very wise woman. It's an honor to know you. His words warmed me. At 67, it was the first time someone had praised my wisdom rather than just calling me a good mother or grandmother. Lying in bed that night, reflecting on the day, I felt a long-lost sense of peace and fulfillment. In this small apartment, I had found something more precious than a spacious house, the feeling of being seen and respected. My phone buzzed. It was a message from Michael. Mom, Lily said today was the best day ever. Thank you. Good night. Love you. I replied with a smiling emoji and good night, then turned off the light. The soft moonlight spilled onto the floor like a silent blessing. That night, I slept more soundly than I had in years. The day of the landscape painting trip was bright and breezy. Our group of a dozen or so seniors took the community's shuttle bus to a lake in the suburbs. Arthur helped me carry my art supplies and found a comfortable, shady spot for me. This is a good spot. You can paint that patch of reeds, he said, setting up my easel and carefully preparing my paints. Just call me if you need anything. I'll be right here. I nodded gratefully. Since the stroke, my right hand was still a bit weak and would tremble after holding a brush for too long. But Arthur never showed any impatience, always offering just the right amount of help. The lake shimmered, and the reeds swayed in the wind. It was a perfect place for painting. I focused on sketching the outlines and applying the colors, completely absorbed in my creation. 2 hours passed in a flash. Eleanor, take a break, Arthur said, handing me a bottle of water. How's it coming along? I stepped aside to show him my work, a vibrant painting of golden reeds dancing in the wind, full of movement and life. It's wonderful, Arthur exclaimed with genuine admiration. Your grasp of light and shadow is very keen. Look here, the way you handled the reflection of the reeds is excellent. Being praised by a professional gave me a rush of accomplishment. At home, no matter how well I cooked or cleaned, I rarely received such compliments. My family had simply gotten used to my contributions, taking them for granted. Just as we were packing up to leave, I suddenly felt a wave of dizziness. The scenery in front of me began to spin. The paintbrush fell from my hand, and I stumbled. Luckily, Arthur was there to catch me. "Eleanor, what's wrong?" His voice seemed to come from far away. I tried to answer, but my tongue wouldn't obey. I could only make muffled sounds. The right side of my body started to go numb, and I felt as if my bones had dissolved, my body slumping downwards. "Call an ambulance! Something's wrong with Eleanor!" Arthur's shout was the last thing I heard before I lost consciousness. When I woke up, the familiar smell of antiseptic told me I was back in the hospital. The monitor beeped rhythmically beside me, an IV was in the back of my right hand, and cold fluid was once again dripping into my veins. "Mom, you're awake?" Michael's voice, full of exhaustion and worry, came from my right. I struggled to turn my head and saw my son's unshaven face and red, swollen eyes. He was wearing a wrinkled shirt and looked like he had been keeping watch for a long time. "What happened?" I managed to get the words out, my tongue still feeling thick and clumsy. "You had another stroke. You've been unconscious for a day," Michael said, holding my hand. "The doctor said it was a small hemorrhage this time, and thank goodness you got to the hospital quickly." Another stroke. The words sent a chill through me. After the last one, I had mostly recovered. What about this time? Would I be paralyzed? Lose my ability to speak? Become a true burden? "Don't worry, Mom," Michael said, seeming to read my fear. "The doctor said the prognosis is good. You recovered so well last time, and you will this time too." Just then, the doctor came in with a nurse for rounds. After a series of checks, he explained the situation to Michael. This was a small hemorrhage in the left basal ganglia. It's a bit more serious than the last one, but luckily there's no widespread damage. It will just require a longer period of rehabilitation. The doctor turned to me. "Eleanor, you need absolute rest right now. Don't rush things. We'll take it slow, okay?" I nodded slightly, my heart filled with dread. What did a longer period of rehabilitation mean? Going back to that house where I had to be so careful, becoming a burden to my son? Or staying in the retirement community, cared for by aides? After the doctor left, Michael said softly, "Mom, don't worry about the rehab. I've already taken a leave of absence from work, and Jessica said she'll adjust her schedule. When you're discharged, you'll come home for a while. We'll take care of you." Home? My heart sank. The home I had fought so hard to escape. But in my current condition, I couldn't live independently. I was torn. "Let me think about it," I finally said. Michael seemed about to say more, but he just nodded. "You rest first. We can decide when you're feeling better." Over the next few days, my condition stabilized. My speech improved, and although it was still a bit slurred, I could express myself clearly. The dexterity in my right hand got better, and I could hold a spoon to eat by myself. But my left leg was still weak, and I needed help to stand for even a moment. Michael stayed by my bedside day and night. Jessica came every day with carefully prepared soup and meals, and she would gently help me wash up and massage my limbs. Lily came every day after school to tell me about her day or read me stories. On the 5th afternoon, I woke from a nap to find Jessica sitting by my bed, looking intently at her phone. "Jessica," I called out softly. "Mom, you're awake!" Jessica immediately put her phone down. "Do you want some water? Or do you need to use the restroom?" I shook my head. "You should go home and rest. I'm fine." "Don't worry about us," Jessica said with a smile, taking my hand. "You just focus on getting better." I looked at my daughter-in-law's tired but gentle eyes and felt a pang of guilt. For years I had felt like she treated me as an outsider, yet here she was, taking such meticulous care of me. "Thank you," I said with difficulty. Jessica shook her head. "Mom, don't say that. You've taken care of us for so many years. Now it's our turn to take care of you." She adjusted my pillow and continued, "Michael and I have talked it over. When you're discharged, we want you to come live with us." She added, "The retirement community is nice, but during your recovery, you'll need someone with you around the clock." My heart sank again. I didn't want to go back to that life of walking on eggshells, but I knew I couldn't manage on my own. As if sensing my hesitation, Jessica added, "We've set up the guest room on the first floor for you. It has its own bathroom, so you'll have your own space. We've also arranged for a physical therapist from the community health center to come to the house 3 times a week." The arrangement was thoughtful, but I was still hesitant. I didn't want to lose the independence I had fought so hard to gain. "Let me think about it," I said again. That evening, when Michael came to take over, I proposed a compromise. "I'll go back to my apartment at the community and hire a full-time aide." Michael frowned. "Mom, the apartment isn't as convenient as our house. And besides, an aide can never be as attentive as family. But you're both so busy with work. I've already requested a transfer to a less demanding department, and Jessica can work flexibly," Michael said firmly. "Mom, please let us take care of you." Looking at my son's earnest face, I couldn't refuse any longer. But I still insisted that I would return to my apartment after I had recovered. Michael was silent for a moment, then finally nodded. "Okay, once you've fully recovered, we will respect your choice." 2 weeks later, I was discharged. The doctor instructed me to continue my medication, stick with the rehabilitation, and have regular checkups. Michael and Jessica carefully brought me home and settled me into the beautifully prepared room on the first floor. The bed was new. My favorite landscape paintings were on the wall, and the tea set and photos from my apartment were on the bedside table. Lily ran around the room excitedly. "Grandma, I drew lots of pictures for you. They're all on the wall. And look at this." She held up a small bell. "If you need help, just ring this, and I'll come right away." I smiled and stroked my granddaughter's head, my heart full of warmth. Perhaps this temporary return wasn't such a bad thing after all. The days of recovery were long and arduous. Every morning, the therapist from the community health center came to help me with an hour of physical exercises, lifting my arm, clenching my fist, standing, walking. Each simple movement had to be repeated dozens of times, leaving me drenched in sweat. The afternoons were for speech therapy, starting with the most basic sounds, relearning how to talk like a child. Every day after work, Michael would spend an hour with me, patiently helping me walk step by step or reading the newspaper with me to practice my pronunciation. Jessica was in charge of preparing nutritionally balanced meals, strictly following the doctor's dietary recommendations. Lily became my little cheerleader, meticulously recording my daily progress on cute, hand-drawn charts. A month later, my recovery had surpassed the doctor's expectations. I could walk slowly without assistance, my speech was mostly fluent, and I only occasionally struggled to find the right word. My right hand had regained most of its function. I could write, use chopsticks, and even do simple drawings. One evening, as the family was watching TV in the living room, I suddenly announced, "I want to go back to the community to visit tomorrow." The room fell silent. Michael and Jessica exchanged a look. "Mom, do you think you're ready?" Michael asked cautiously. I nodded. "I miss my friends there, and it's time for me to start getting used to living independently again." "But what about your physical therapy? The community health center is actually closer to Serenity Gardens," I said, having already thought it through. "The therapist can go there." Michael looked like he wanted to argue, but Jessica gently placed a hand on his. "Mom, if you feel you're ready, we support you. But please promise us you'll call immediately if you feel unwell, okay?" I looked at my daughter-in-law gratefully. "I will." The next day, Michael drove me back to the community. He was quiet during the drive, stealing glances at me from time to time. "Are you worried about me?" I asked. Michael sighed. "Mom, these past 2 months, as difficult as they've been, I've cherished them. It felt like when I was a kid again, when you needed me." I never expected my son to say that. I had thought I was a burden, but it turned out he had found a sense of being needed through caring for me. "I was happy too," I said softly. "But it's time for me to be independent again." My friends at the community greeted me warmly, gathering around to welcome me back. Carol and Arthur helped me tidy up my room, and the art teacher brought me my favorite braised fish from the dining hall. In the afternoon, as Michael was reluctantly preparing to leave, I suddenly said, "Bring Lily for dinner this weekend. I've learned to cook a new dish." Michael's eyes lit up. "We'll be here. You take care of yourself, Mom. Call me anytime." Watching his car drive away, I stood on the balcony, feeling the late summer breeze on my face. This illness had given my family and me an unexpected opportunity to rediscover each other's value. Now, I had both the freedom of independence and the love of my family. Perhaps this was the best balance of all. On the first weekend back at Serenity Gardens, I woke up early to prepare for my family's visit. I carefully made a shopping list. Ribs for Michael, leafy greens for Jessica, and strawberries, as requested by Lily. Although my steps were still a bit unsteady, I insisted on going to the nearby supermarket by myself. On my way back, I ran into Arthur. He was coming out of the library with a few books. "Eleanor, you're back," he said, hurrying over to take the shopping bags from me. "How's your recovery?" "Much better," I replied with a smile. "My family is coming for dinner today." "Then you shouldn't tire yourself out," Arthur said with concern. "Do you need any help?" I shook my head. "No, thank you, I can manage." But Arthur insisted on walking me back anyway. "These books are for you. They're about post-stroke rehabilitation. They're quite good." I took the books and thanked him. Arthur's thoughtful gestures always warmed me. Since my husband passed away, it had been a long time since a man had treated me with such gentle consideration. Back in my apartment, I started preparing lunch. My movements were much slower than before, but I savored the act of cooking for my family. It was no longer a daily chore, but an expression of love. At 11:30, the doorbell rang. Lily's voice came through the door. "Grandma, we're here." I opened the door, and my granddaughter flew into my arms like a little butterfly. Michael and Jessica were carrying bags of fruit, supplements, and even a small juicer. "Mom, you look great," Michael said, looking me over with a relieved smile. Jessica went straight to the kitchen. "Do you need a hand? I can help with the cooking." "No need. Everything's ready," I said, leading them into my redecorated apartment. The walls were covered with Lily's drawings and my recovery progress charts. There were new plants on the balcony, and on the coffee table were several of my recent watercolor paintings. "Grandma, your painting is getting so good," Lily exclaimed, pointing to a painting of sunflowers. "Arthur has been teaching me," I said, noticing a slight frown on Michael's face. The lunch was warm and cheerful. My cooking skills seemed to have improved, and the simple home-cooked dishes were delicious. Lily chattered about school, while Michael and Jessica shared news from work. "Mom, we wanted to talk to you about something," Michael said seriously after lunch. "About your living arrangements going forward." I put down my teacup and waited. "Jessica and I have talked it over. We respect your wish to live independently, but you've just recovered. We were wondering if we could find a compromise." "Such as?" I asked. "For example, you could live here during the week and come home on the weekends." "Or the other way around," Michael suggested. "That way, you have your own space, and we can also take care of you." I thought about it. The suggestion was reasonable, but I still wanted to maintain more of my independence. "I have an idea," I said slowly. "Lily can visit me every Wednesday, and you all can come for dinner on the weekends. The rest of the time, I'll manage on my own." Michael looked a little disappointed, but Jessica nodded. "That's a good plan. Mom needs her own social circle and routine. What about your health monitoring?" Michael was still worried. "The community has nurses who check my blood pressure daily," I said, pointing to the smart blood pressure monitor on my bedside table. "The data gets sent to you automatically." Michael had bought it for me when I was in the hospital. Seeing how thoroughly I had thought things through, Michael finally relented. "All right, we'll do as you say, but you must call us immediately if you feel even slightly unwell." "I will," I promised with a smile. In the following months, this new routine became stable. Every Wednesday afternoon, Jessica would bring Lily to the community. My granddaughter taught me how to use various phone apps, and I taught her how to paint and do calligraphy. On weekends, my family would come for dinner or take me out for a drive or to see a movie. My recovery progressed smoothly. By fall, I could walk with ease, my speech had fully returned, and I was even more talkative than before my illness. My right hand had recovered enough for me to paint again, and one of my watercolors even won an award at the Senior University's exhibition. One weekend in October, while the family was having dinner in my apartment, Lily suddenly announced, "I want to have a sleepover at Grandma's tonight." "Again?" Michael chuckled. "Didn't we try that last time? Grandma's place is small." "It's not small," Lily insisted. "Grandma and I can share the bed. Tomorrow is Sunday, so I don't have to get up early for school." I looked at my granddaughter's hopeful face and couldn't bear to say no. "If your parents agree." Jessica and Michael exchanged a look and finally nodded. "All right, but we have plans tomorrow morning, so we can only pick you up in the afternoon." "Yay!" Lily cheered and immediately ran to show me the new toys she had brought. That night, snuggled together in the small bed, Lily asked, "Grandma, do you like living here more, or at our house?" I gently stroked her hair. "I like both, but in different ways." "I think you're happier here," Lily said with childish wisdom. "You have lots of friends in painting class. At home, you were always busy with chores, and you didn't smile as much." Her sharp observation surprised me. It was true. In this small retirement apartment, I had found a long-lost sense of self-worth and peace. "But," Lily yawned, "I wish you would come home more often too. I want to see you every day." "Grandma will visit often," I promised softly, kissing her forehead. "Go to sleep, sweetie." The next morning, after my family left, I sat on the balcony sipping tea, reflecting on the wonderful weekend. My phone buzzed. It was a message from Arthur. "Eleanor, there's an ink wash painting competition at the senior university next week. Do you want to enter? I can sign you up." I thought for a moment and replied, "Okay, thank you. What do I need to prepare?" "I'll bring the supplies. We can discuss your entry after calligraphy class tomorrow afternoon." Putting down the phone, I looked out at the bright sunshine. Life at 67 was far more colorful than I had ever imagined. I had my own space and hobbies, and I also enjoyed the love and care of my family. This balance was perhaps the best arrangement of all. Just before New Year's, I received a call from Michael, inviting me home for a family meeting. His tone on the phone was a bit serious, which made me worry that something was wrong. On the afternoon of the 31st, Michael came to pick me up. In the car, he explained, "Mom, today we're going to have a completely honest family meeting. Everyone is going to say what's on their mind. Jessica and Lily are all prepared." My stomach fluttered. Although our family relationship had improved greatly since I moved out, a family meeting still sounded too formal, reminding me of those TV shows where families try to resolve their conflicts. When we arrived, I found the living room decorated warmly. There were my favorite flowers on the coffee table, a family portrait on the TV console, and even the teacup I used to use, which had been put away since I left. Jessica brought out hot tea and snacks from the kitchen, and Lily excitedly pulled me over to show me a new dance she had learned. The atmosphere didn't seem as tense as I had imagined. "Have some tea, Mom," Michael said, seating me on the couch. "Today, we want to have a real talk about how we're going to move forward as a family." I nodded and took the teacup. The familiar warmth and feel of it was comforting. "I'll start," Michael said, taking a deep breath. "Mom, in the 6 months since you moved out, I've done a lot of thinking. At first, I really didn't understand. I was even a little angry. But then I realized that you needed more than just financial support. You needed your independence and respect." He paused, then continued. "I always assumed I knew what was best for you, but I never bothered to ask what you actually wanted. That was my mistake. I hadn't expected my son to begin like this." I looked at his sincere eyes, momentarily at a loss for words. "Mom, I was wrong too," Jessica chimed in. "I used to see you as just an elderly person who needed to be cared for, and I failed to see you as an individual with your own thoughts and feelings. You did so much for us, and I rarely expressed my gratitude." "Not to be outdone," Lily raised her hand. "I have something to say too. Grandma, I always made you pick up my toys, and I was picky about the vegetables you cooked. I'm sorry." The child's innocence made all the adults laugh. My eyes grew misty. I reached out and stroked my granddaughter's hair. "I was wrong too," I said slowly. "I should have communicated my feelings to you all sooner, instead of bottling them up and then suddenly leaving. That was too impulsive." "But it was your impulsive act that woke us up," Michael said with a wry smile. "It was only when I saw the empty house that I realized how much we depended on you, and yet how much we had neglected you." "Mom, we'd like you to reconsider your living arrangements," Jessica said gently. "Not to move back in permanently, but to find a more balanced solution." I looked at their hopeful faces and asked, "What do you have in mind?" Michael produced a piece of paper with a detailed schedule drawn on it. "Here's what we were thinking. You live at the community during the week, and on weekends, you can choose to come home or have us visit you. We'll spend all the holidays together, and Lily's visit on Wednesdays will continue. Also," he paused, We were thinking of renting a small apartment near Serenity Gardens. That way, we'd be closer, and it would be easier to help if you needed anything. What do you think? I was stunned by the plan. My son had clearly given this a lot of thought, respecting my independence while ensuring our family remained close. Renting an apartment is too much trouble. I shook my head. The way things are now is fine. But the community isn't the same as home, Michael insisted. What if you get sick or need help? I have friends. And the staff? I said gently but firmly. This distance is perfect. Any closer, and we'll fall back into old habits. Seeing my resolve, Michael had to concede. All right. Then at least promise us you'll move back for a few months during the winter. It gets too cold at the community, and it's not good for your health. This compromise made me pause. Winter was a concern. The heating at the community wasn't as good as at home. I can consider that. I finally nodded. Also, Jessica added, we'd like to have at least one family video call a week, and you have to promise to measure your blood pressure and blood sugar regularly and sync the data with us. Okay, I agreed with a smile. These requests were reasonable and made me feel cared for. Grandma? Lily suddenly threw her arms around me. I have one more small request. What is it? I asked curiously. Teach me watercolor painting, you promised. I want to enter the school's art festival. I laughed. Of course, every Wednesday is our art class. The meeting lasted until dinner time. We discussed more details: emergency contacts, regular health checkups, how to spend the holidays, and even a care plan for if my health were to decline significantly in the future. These were topics we had never dared to touch before. But now, we could talk about them openly, putting all our fears and expectations on the table. After dinner, Lily performed her New Year's show for us, and the evening was filled with laughter. As I was getting ready to head back to the community, Michael suddenly asked, Mom, do you regret moving out? I thought for a moment and answered honestly, No, I don't. The way I did it was drastic, but it was the only way to make you all truly see me. Michael hugged me tightly. We see you now, Mom. We really do. That night, back at Serenity Gardens, I stood on my balcony and watched the New Year's fireworks in the distance. At 67, I had finally learned how to love my family without losing myself, and my family had learned how to respect an older person's individuality and choices. This new balance was perhaps the best New Year's gift of all. The retirement community was especially lively before the Lunar New Year. Red lanterns hung in the hallways, the activity center was rehearsing for the New Year's gala, and the dining hall menu featured many festive dishes. A foo character, written by Lily, was pasted on my door, and 2 strings of small red lanterns hung on my balcony. I was packing my suitcase, preparing to go home for a month, as we had agreed at our New Year's family meeting. My phone rang with a video call from Lily. Grandma, Dad said he's picking you up at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Is there anything we need to bring? No need, everything's ready, I said with a smile, turning the camera to my packed suitcase. Look, I've got my clothes, and I also have a gift for you. A gift? Lily cheered. What is it? What is it? It's a secret. You'll see when I get there, I said with a mysterious wink. It was a set of hand-painted bookmarks of the Chinese zodiac, one for each family member, beautifully framed. After hanging up, I sat on my bed and looked around the small room I had lived in for over 6 months. My award-winning watercolor was on the wall. My painting supplies and textbooks were neatly arranged on the desk, and on the bedside table was my wedding photo with my husband, next to a new family portrait we had taken last Christmas. Everyone was smiling so naturally. The neglected old woman who had silently left her home 6 months ago was now a new person. I had my own circle of friends, had discovered my talent for painting, and had even started learning how to edit photos on a computer. Most importantly, my relationship with my son's family had reached an unprecedented level of harmony, not a superficial peace maintained through self-sacrifice, but a deep, familial bond built on mutual respect. The doorbell rang. It was Arthur. Eleanor, all packed? Let's have lunch together, a little send-off. What send-off? It's only for a month, I laughed, but I went with him to the dining hall anyway. About 7 or 8 of my close friends were there for the small lunch, including my art teacher. He gave me a beautiful art book. You can practice with this at home during the holiday. These folk art themes are perfect for this season. Thank you. I'll bring you some homemade sausage when I come back, I said, accepting the gift with a warm heart. These friends, though I hadn't known them long, had given me true understanding and companionship. At 3 o'clock, Michael arrived right on time. He helped me with my luggage, carefully asking if I needed anything else. I've got everything, I said, patting his shoulder. They take good care of me at the community. On the way back to the city, Michael told me about the new changes at home. We redecorated the guest room on the first floor, got a softer mattress, and added a small desk so you can paint. Lily insisted on covering the walls with her drawings, said it would make you not miss the community so much. I smiled. That child. Mom, honestly, Michael said, suddenly serious. Do you think this experiment of the past 6 months has been a success? I mean, you moving out. I thought for a moment and replied slowly, yes. It was good for all of us. You learned to respect my choices, and I found my own worth. You know, Michael's voice choked up a bit. I used to be afraid of you getting old, of you needing my care. I was afraid it would be a heavy burden. But now I understand. The real burden isn't taking care of you, it's neglecting you. Seeing you so happy and fulfilled at the community actually makes me feel more at ease. His words warmed my heart. My son finally understood that what elderly people need isn't overprotection, but to be seen and respected. When we arrived home, Jessica and Lily were waiting at the door. Lily ran up and gave me a big hug, then immediately asked, "Where's the gift? Where's my gift?" "Lily," Jessica said disapprovingly, "let Grandma come inside and rest first." "It's okay. Let's see your room first," I said with a wink, pulling out a beautifully wrapped box from my bag. Lily tore it open and gasped. "Wow, these bookmarks are so pretty. Is this me?" She held up the bookmark with a little rabbit on it, her zodiac sign, and wouldn't let it go. "There's one for everyone," I said, taking out 2 more boxes for my son and daughter-in-law. "Yours is a dragon, and Jessica's is a snake." Michael looked at the exquisite bookmark in his hand, amazed. The artwork was clearly much better than my earlier pieces. "Mom, you're getting better and better. Did you really paint this yourself?" "Arthur gave me some guidance," I said, a little shyly. "It won an award at the senior university competition." "Grandma is amazing," Lily said with admiration. "I want to be just like you." Jessica carefully put her bookmark away and said sincerely, "Mom, thank you. This gift is so thoughtful." When I saw my new room, I was pleasantly surprised by how much effort they had put in. The bed was comfortable and warm, the desk faced a window with plenty of light, and the walls not only had Lily's drawings but also a blank space reserved for my own artwork. There were even a few new watercolor tutorial books on the bookshelf. "Do you like it?" Michael asked nervously. "If there's anything else you need, just let me know." "It's perfect." "I don't need anything else," I said, looking around, my heart full of gratitude. The room managed to combine the warmth of home with the respect for my personal space, just like our relationship now. After dinner, the family watched TV and chatted in the living room. Lily pestered me to teach her how to draw simple New Year's patterns, while Michael and Jessica discussed the holiday schedule. "Mom, we'll celebrate New Year's Eve at home, go to Jessica's parents on New Year's Day, and come back on the 2nd, Michael explained. "Is there anything special you'd like to do?" "I'd like to make dumplings together," I said after a moment's thought. "It's been a long time since we all did that." "Great!" Lily cheered. "I want to learn how to make little fish-shaped dumplings. And," I added, "I'd like to invite a few friends over for a meal. Carol, Arthur, their children aren't nearby." Michael and Jessica exchanged a look, then nodded readily. "Of course. Your friends are our friends." That response warmed my heart. In the past, my social circle was limited to my family and a few old neighbors, and my son rarely showed any interest in my friends. Now, he was willing to embrace the relationships I had built independently. It was a complete acknowledgement of my new identity. Before bed, I sat at the desk in my new room and sent a message to Arthur. "Arrived home safely. Everything is wonderful. Are you and Carol free on the 5th? I'd like to invite you over for a meal." A reply came quickly. "That would be an honor. Wishing you an early, happy New Year. Enjoy the family time." Putting down the phone, I looked at the moon outside. This new year, at 67, I had a life I never dared to imagine before. I was a mother and grandmother who was respected and needed by her family, and also an independent woman with her own hobbies and friends. On the bedside table, my husband's photo stood quietly. I gently wiped the frame and whispered, "Honey, I'm doing well now. I'm doing really well." I knew the road ahead would still have its challenges, health problems that come with age, minor frictions from generational differences, the inconveniences of living alone. But after the experiences of the past 6 months, my family and I had learned how to love and support each other without losing ourselves. This balance, this feeling of being seen and respected, was perhaps the best gift of old age. Outside, someone set off fireworks early, their brilliant light illuminating the night sky. I smiled, drew the curtains, and prepared to welcome this very special new year. Whatever the future held, I had been reborn. The Lunar New Year was warm and lively. On New Year's Eve, the whole family made dumplings together. Lily crafted all sorts of strange and creative shapes, making everyone laugh. On New Year's Day, we visited Jessica's parents, who were noticeably warmer to me than before, even asking about my life at the retirement community. On the second day, Michael drove us to the countryside for a walk, and we had a picnic among the plum blossoms. I did a quick sketch, and Lily collected a bag of pine cones to decorate my room back at the community. On the fifth day, Arthur and Carol came as planned. Michael and Jessica prepared a sumptuous lunch. At the table, the two generations got along surprisingly well. Arthur and Michael hit it off, discovering they had a lot in common, from work to hobbies. Carol shared some health recipes with Jessica, who diligently took notes on her phone. "Mom, your friend Arthur is a great guy," Michael said to me after our guests had left. "No wonder you enjoy talking to him. He's very knowledgeable." I smiled. My son's approval of Arthur was a weight off my mind. I had worried he might object to my friendship with a man, as the older generation often believed that widowed women should lead a quiet, solitary life. Before the holiday ended, we held a brief family meeting to confirm the living arrangements we had agreed upon. I would live at the community on weekdays, have the freedom to choose whether to come home or have them visit on weekends. Lily would come for painting lessons every Wednesday, and I would measure my blood pressure daily and sync the data to Michael. Any health issues were to be reported immediately. "Mom, take this," Michael said at the end of the meeting, handing me a new phone. It was the latest smartphone designed for seniors, with simple controls and a large red button for emergencies that would instantly call him and Jessica. I took the phone, my heart full of warmth. This little device was more than a communication tool. It was a symbol of my son's care. The day I returned to the community, the sun was shining brightly. Arthur was at the entrance to greet me and help with my luggage. "How was the holiday?" he asked with a smile. "Wonderful. I was with family and friends," I replied, suddenly realizing that this was my ideal life, having the love of family while also having my own social circle and independence. In my room, the pictures Lily had put up and the flowers Arthur had brought filled the space with life. I shared the homemade sausage I brought from home with my friends, and we all sat together, drinking tea and sharing stories about our holidays. That night, I sat at my desk and wrote a letter to my late husband, telling him about the changes and my reflections over the past 6 months. This time, I didn't burn it. I carefully placed it in a drawer. Perhaps one day I would show these letters to Michael so he could better understand his mother's inner world. My phone buzzed. It was a message from Michael. "Mom, are you back safely? Lily says she misses you. She'll be on time for class next Wednesday. Love you." I replied, "I'm back. Everything is fine. Tell Lily Grandma misses her too." Putting down the phone, I looked around the small room. My paintings were on the walls, my art supplies and books were on the desk, and the family portrait and my husband's photo were on the bedside table. Outside, the moonlight was like water, and the stars were scattered across the sky. In my 67 years, I had lived through war, famine, the loss of my husband, and the hardship of raising a son alone. In my later years, I had faced the challenge of a strained family relationship. But at this moment, I felt a peace and contentment I had never known before. I had found the balance between family and self, neither completely sacrificing myself for them nor completely cutting ties to pursue my independence. The community's lights-out bell rang. I turned off the lamp and lay in bed. Tomorrow morning was painting class. In the afternoon, Arthur and I were going to the library to find an art book. In the evening, I would rehearse for the Lantern Festival show with a few friends. Life was full and meaningful. Outside, a gentle breeze rustled the leaves. I closed my eyes, a smile on my lips. My life, at last, could be considered complete.